Okay, Dr. RJ Bruno, and another topic of neurology today. And this one is about multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis is the most common um, uh, movement disorder, brain type, um, uh, inflammatory condition of all of them. Yes, there are things like ALS and some other neurologic conditions, but multiple sclerosis is the most common deteriorating brain condition of all of them. They said that up to about 1 million people in the United States have multiple sclerosis. So we're talking about one out of maybe 300 or so people in the United States have multiple sclerosis. Around the world, it's about 2.8 million. And I don't believe that because I think it's probably because it's not being diagnosed as much. Because there's no reason the United States should have any more than any place else around the world. If you want to say because we're more educated and we have more junk food, we're no different than places like London or Tokyo. People there are eating pretty much the same diet as we are, same kind of exposures. So there's nothing special about the United States. Like I said, I just think that in other countries, probably they're not being diagnosed as much as there is in the United States. In any event, multiple sclerosis is a condition where the immune system starts attacking the nerves. The initial process is a situation where the coating of the nerve is damaged. Now, the coating of the nerve is kind of a waxy substance, somewhat similar to cholesterol, and it covers the nerves and acts like the insulation on a wire. If you have a bare wire with no insulation, it can short circuit. And that's basically what happens when you remove the insulation around the nerve. It can short circuit. And when this happens, basically, nerves can be damaged. The connections between the brain and the rest of the body can be lost. And so we see symptoms of this loss of brain control, difficulty with walking, difficulty with using the arms, difficulty with managing the bowels and bladder, and even at later stages, difficulty with talking and swallowing. Now, the condition also has different forms. There is one form where the person has problems and they just slowly get worse and worse all the time. This is called primary progressive type of MS. There's also a type of MS where the person gets worse and then they get better. And then they get worse and then they get better. And this is kind of an intermittent relapsing type of MS. There's also a more severe form of that where the person has relapses that get more severe, but progressively over time they get worse and worse. They don't come back to the baseline anymore. Then there's also one that's called secondary progressive. This is some situation where somebody's been in remission pretty much all their life, and then suddenly they start going downhill. This is probably the one that's most problematic for the MS patient because they were doing so well. All of a sudden, toward the end, they're going downhill rapidly. And so they're thinking that everything is fine, and then boom, doesn't work so well. Now these days they have medications that can halt the progression of the MS. There isn't really a cure at this time. Basically, it's all about treatment with medications. So the person with MS, if they can continue in the remission state for as long as possible, there's less damage being done to the brain and spinal cord. And so their outlook is a lot brighter than for somebody who keeps on going into a relapse and coming back to normal, relapse, coming back to normal. And each time they do that, there's a little bit more damage to the brain and spinal cord. Um, Now, there are cells that are supposed to assist in making the covering of the nerves. These cells become damaged and can't do their job. And they also can't keep up with the inflammatory process of the immune system, fast enough to replace the coating. So over time, um, uh, that's why, the immune system eventually can win out with this, unless the person is being treated aggressively. Um, the um, uh, uh, the typical medications are being used today. A lot of injectables, some oral medication, but all of them try to suppress the immune system. The MS is almost like some of the other autoimmune conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, where the immune system is making a mistake in attacking the parts of the body. In this case, it's attacking the nerves. In rheumatoid, they're attacking the joints. So for whatever reason, we don't know what causes it. We think it could be a virus, it could be genetic, we're just not sure. Research is not 100% definitive on what's going on yet. So we basically treat it as best we can. And I can tell you in my own practice that most of the people who had MS in my practice did very well with the treatments. So hopefully this will even get better in the future. All right, take care.